In this session, you will learn about packaging your goods, couriers and freight forwarders, importing, exporting, custom brokers, duties, and warehousing. I'll take questions at the end, by the way. So please hold your questions because it's hard for me to see the chat box when I'm talking. Okay, so before I get started, I'd like to introduce myself in case some of you have not met me. My name is Glynis, and I'm a clothing brand owner turned business consultant and SEO specialist. I have 20 years apparel industry experience, 10 years working for big brands such as Zellers, head office. I worked at Club Monaco as a product developer and also at Reebok as a product manager there. I was in charge of the uniform redesign project for the CFL. And I also had my own clothing design company for over a decade that I did. So I'm bringing in my experience from both, working in corporate environment as well as having my own business as well. So I could totally relate to, what you're going through as a fashion entrepreneur, a clothing brand owner. My passion is that I love to help creative entrepreneurs build a purposeful and profitable business so they can make a living doing what they love. And it's possible to be able to make a living doing what you love, because I'm proof, because I did it. I was able to run it for 10 years and make a living off of doing, off my passion. And so I'm the founder of Chase Your Dreams Consulting, which offers strategy, business consulting, SEO services for apparel companies. I'm also the host of Chase Your Dreams podcast, which is a podcast for fashion entrepreneurs who are ready to pursue their passion and make a living doing what they love. It's available on pretty much all podcast platforms. And I've also been featured in different media, such as the Vancouver Sun, National Post, the Globe and Mail, and CBC Radio. Okay, so let me just start off by talking about the operations plan. So this is actually a section in the business plan. So if you have written a business plan or intend to write a business plan, the operations plan is part of the business plan, right? So what does the operation plan cover? Usually operations involves what is your legal form of business? So are you a sole proprietorship? Are you partnership or incorporation? These are the forms of legal forms of business that's in Canada, and US is slightly different. I know they have like LLCs and stuff like that. But yeah, it's sort of similar. And so you need to figure out what type of business, form of business your company is going to take on and register your business. You have to consider your physical setup, whether or not you are going to rent a place, are you going to have a lease, or you're going to work from home in a home office setting. It really depends on the type of business that you have and the space that's required, right? Some businesses require warehouse or some bigger facilities, or a shop, a storefront, or you require a studio or space that you need people to come to work for you. So, you need to figure that out. And also the regulations in terms of bylaws, any bylaws that are applicable, taxes, you need to collect your taxes and remit taxes. Any kind of WorkSafe BC is like a workers' compensation that protects your workers and as well as yourself in case something happens to you. And also any kind of licensing, business licenses that you need, and business registration, usually in the city where you are. Even if you work from home, like you need some kind of business license. So you have to check with your city to see what kind of registration or license that you need. Usually if go to City Hall or something and then you go register it. And business records and financial controls. So really, you know, how are you going to manage your business records, such as your bank account, and how are you going to produce your financial statements? Are you going to hire a bookkeeper, an accountant? And so what kind of experience or training do you have to be able to ensure that your records are managed correctly? Okay, because it's good to set everything up properly from the beginning. If you don't know, it's always good to get advice from a professional, especially accountant, how to set up your books properly, because you got to be able to do your reporting, right, and file your year-end taxes and all that stuff. And business financing. So how are you going to finance your business? What are your sources of funding? Are you going to be self-funded? You know, are you going to be using some savings? Are you going to get a loan or a line of credit, or use you know, your credit card, which I don't advise using credit card like to pay for stuff if you know it's going to be like, you know, you can't pay that off. It's because it's so high interest. But trying to secure some kind of line of credit that's lower interest usually helps, or some kind of business loan or grants. Grants are ideal. Or if you can get some kind of investor on board, which is, investors are harder, especially in the early stages of business, because they want to see sales. But you know, you can also approach perhaps angel investors or family members or friends to, you know, help contribute to your business. And then something, it may or may not apply to everybody, is the protection of your designs and ideas. And so there are 4 forms of protection. There's a patent, there's copyright, trademark, and industrial design. So it really depends on the type of product that you're producing. Some products you may want to get a patent on it. So it patents the whole design or process of the product, so someone else can't copy it. However, it's tricky. Patents cost a lot of money. And sometimes, you know, I know somebody who's gone through it, spent like thousands of dollars doing this, and, you know, found that there's still people copying them because they just change a step or a stitch or something, and it becomes a whole new design that the patent no longer is valid. So I don't know, in terms of fashion, you know, clothing, it's hard to patent or copyright your designs, really. I mean, my products were copied everywhere. It was just the most annoying thing ever, was seeing my product images all over Alibaba and Amazon. And I was like, wait, you know, they were claiming that they produced these, and they just basically took my product images and undercut me. And so I spent a lot of time just like, you know, patrolling and monitoring, reporting. It just became this whole thing. But anyways, you can't really do much about it. I mean, I complained and they had them removed, but then, like, you know, 2 days later, another one came up. So really, you know, just focus on your designs, I think, and innovating, and keep moving forward, and be an innovator, and your fans and followers and clientele will recognize that, right, as an innovator, and those other people are just copiers, right? Trademarking, it could be trademarking a name, a brand. I trademarked my brand name. It was called Crazy Heads. I went through that whole process, trying to trademark a word, the word mark. However, I was met with like objection from another company that kind of crazy, but they had their company had word crazy in it as well. So they acted as if they owned the word crazy, and they stopped anyone who tried to register a brand with the word crazy in it. So, and they, you know, they were like $130 million company. It was a clothing company too. And they stopped me. So I hired a trademark lawyer, and just to make a long story short, because I did some research and trying to find out who, I found this lawyer because he won several cases against this company. That's other companies who tried to register their name, trademark their name with the word crazy in it. He won, so I contacted him. But anyways, I won my trademark. So this is very early on, so it's just a really, funny story that that I went through this. And also, then production is also part of operations. And I did a whole presentation on the fundamentals of garment manufacturing and production, the production process and stuff like that. And then also human resources. When you are at the time or your point ready to hire staff, so it's something you need to look into in terms of how you're going to hire them and processes and what kind of forms you need and all that stuff. Okay, so that's really an overview of the operations plan. So really consider this like for your own business as well. Okay. Today we're going to talk, I guess it's more specifically about logistics, right? And shipping, packaging, and that sort of thing. So because I know, like, I think most of you here are clothing brand owners. So you have to package your goods, right? So your goods probably when you receive them from your supplier are packaged in some form or another. And then you probably, repackage it or something when you are shipping things out to your customers, right? Whether it's direct to consumer, if you're shipping an online order or you're doing wholesale orders, they probably need to be packaged differently, right? And so in my previous clothing business, I did both. I also did a lot of consumer shows, direct to consumer conventions and stuff. And so I designed, and I was designing, producing a very niche product for the junior market. It was clothing that was inspired by Japanese animation and pop culture. So I did a lot of comic book and anime conventions. Throughout my time, I did probably over 150 conventions across the US, Canada, and Europe. And so I had to ship a lot of my products to these shows, and timing was crucial. Product had to arrive to my destination prior to the show. I had to ship them to the hotel or wherever I was staying. I had to do most of it. I had to send across the border, had to clear customs, had to make sure it arrived on time, but had to also watch my costing and expenses because, shipping is expensive, right? And sorry, I'm just letting someone in right now. So yeah, so I spent a lot of time packing my own goods in boxes. I had tons of cardboard boxes. I mean, Uline, I'm sure most of you are familiar with Uline's a packaging company. They pretty much sell everything that's packaging related. So what I was doing was when I was shipping my goods to these shows, I had a trick to this, right? Because my product was very bulky. I was selling like fleece hats and hoodies and stuff, but it was light at least. But I found this like way of packing my stuff where I was using these large kind of vacuum seal bags, and I'd pack like, probably like 20, 25 hoodies in a box and into this like vacuum bag, and like sucked all the air out of it, where it would literally compress like it down to like this little tiny cube. And shoved it into like the box. So I got this down to science, right? After doing like over 100 shows, and doing all the shipping, trying to get all my product, you know, over the border, clearing customs. And I'm just like proud to say that I had not missed one show. Like I never, the product always arrived on time. And because it was important, right? I could potentially lose thousands of dollars. My product didn't arrive on time. And I even had to, like, I want to tell you like these crazy stories that I've gone through where, you know, my product got held up in customs and it was like close to the show date. I was in the city already, the day of the show. And I'm like nervously tracking the package, right? On FedEx or whatever. And I'm like, holy smokes, it's like at the depot or it's in transit or whatever. And it's like estimated arrival is like, I'm like, I got so close like 1 or 2 times where it was going to be late, right? And for like, I probably maybe missed one day. I was like, I had to call the FedEx, you know, depot and tell them to like either hold it because it was like either going to be out for delivery or something. So I was like, okay, you got to stop the truck. You got to unload the stuff, send it to the closest depot and I'm going to go there and pick it up. And I got my stuff, right? Like a lot of times it would be like at the airport or I have to go like taxi it out or rent a car to get out to the airport, go to the FedEx depot and get my stuff. So anyways, yeah, that's my experience with shipping. And if things are going to go wrong, they will go wrong. So always allow time for buffer. And yeah, so, you know, that's doing shows. And in terms of packing for wholesale orders or retailers, you know, usually there's some requirements that, you know, especially if they're large retailers, they have packaging guidelines that you need to follow and how your boxes need to be labeled and that sort of thing. If you're shipping for your online orders, then you can find different packaging options. If you're looking for sustainable packages, I found this company called the Better Packaging Co. And they make like biodegradable poly bags and like mailing shippers. So, you know, there's options out there if your focus is sustainability. So I'm sure you're all familiar with these are all courier companies, the big courier companies, right? And these companies ship internationally. So Canada Post, well, actually Canada Post ships within Canada, US Post ships within the US. And DHL, I usually use DHL for overseas shipments. They're good with handling that. For the most part, I was using FedEx. I had a bad experience with UPS. So after the first the first time I used them was for the show I was doing, like it was in Connecticut, and they were so late with my shipment. I was like literally on the phone with them all day, like trying to push them to deliver my packages, and I was so frustrated that I was like, okay, I can't use these people. And then I also had like discounts and accounts with every single courier company because I was part of different associations. I was with the gift in the gift association. So I had different, so try to see if you're part of an association, perhaps they offer discounts for different courier companies, and that could save you quite a lot of money, right? I had max discount pretty much for all of them. And even depending on where your location is and where you're trying to ship, sometimes there's a better courier. Like I found I was using US Post to ship some of my packages over to Hawaii, and because I found it was more cost effective. But it really, you know, comes down to checking your prices for things, and you'll start to know once you start doing a lot more shipping, like, okay, it's going to cost about this much to ship here, and what are the prices, and then also the timeline. But for me, I hardly used express shipping because it was just so insanely expensive. I always use ground shipments, but with that, you gotta make sure you plan ahead of time and know what the delivery timelines are for everything, so that you could give yourself that time, but also buffer, like I said, you know, because if you're shipping across the border and it requires brokerage, custom and clearing customs, I would literally give yourself like 2-3 days buffer for that if your package ever gets held up for whatever reason. Okay, whether if you have the wrong paperwork or you filled out the documents incorrectly. Now, I want to talk about freight forwarders here. And this is if you are importing or exporting, shipping things or receiving things from overseas. So I was doing my production overseas, part of my production, which was my kids' line, because I had to get better pricing, because that kids' wear is just so competitive and I could not price it properly having my stuff made domestically. I went overseas for better pricing, and so I was placing some pretty big bulk orders by that time, and I had to import stuff into Canada, and also my biggest market is in the US, and so I had to split my shipments coming into Canada and the US. So I literally handle my own, like, well, I didn't handle it, but I had a company help me. Like, I had a freight forwarder to do this for me, which was a freight forwarder is a carrier, basically, that handles your freight from the port brings them from port to port. So whether it's by ship and then usually from overseas, it's coming in on boat, right? And then if it needs to be trucked or put on a train to go across the country, your freight forwarder usually handles all the logistics to get your product from point A to point B. Okay, so I had a freight forwarder I worked with, again, through my gift association. I had discount with this company, but they're a very, very large company. It's international. And they handled all my shipments. So when I purchased my goods from the factory in Asia, usually the pricing would be FOB. And that means they're just responsible for, producing your goods and packaging your goods up to the point where it's ready to leave the factory. And then you have to get the freight forwarder to come, and they will get a truck or something to collect your goods and bring it over to the freight forwarder's warehouse, which is over at the port. And then your products will get stored, and while they fill up the containers, because they're not going to ship a half-empty container, and usually you're probably not producing enough stuff, your order is probably not enough to fill up a whole container. So they wait and consolidate all the goods, okay, until it fills up a container, and then they put it on the boat. So that time, you got to allow for about 2 weeks. So if you're importing goods, you got to allow for that transit time, not only the time where it's traveling by boat, which is maybe 3 weeks, but you have to allow the time where, it's sitting in the warehouse waiting for it to consolidate and then placing it on the boat. And then when it gets here, everything gets unloaded, and then it has to go and clear customs as well. Okay, so that's what the freight forwarder handles. And so you have to pay. So I pay the factory the FOB price per garment, and then I have to pay all my freight, okay, to the freight forwarder. They'll give you a price, like, it's usually based on less than container load price, what that price is, and then also the transportation. And then you need to get a customs broker to clear your goods, okay? So sometimes I think the freight forwarders may do that, or you may need I think my freight forwarder brokered my goods into Canada, but I used another customs broker for all my shipments in the going into the US. And if you're American and you're shipping Canada, it's, you know, it's the same thing. You still need a customs broker. If you're working with couriers like FedEx, UPS, they will provide customs clearing and brokerage services for you, depending on the service that you use. However, you don't necessarily have to use their services if you have your own customs broker that you're using. I never used like the FedEx brokerage. I always had my own, and I've gone with Livingston. Okay, I used Livingston my entire time I was in business. I never had a problem with them. They're so reliable. Like, they're great to work with, and they cleared all my shipments like on time. And I knew the person's name, like my first name. Like, I was on the phone with them. It's like, hey, my pack. Or usually I would even give them a heads up and go, hey, I got a shipment leaving like today, you know, it's going here. And yeah, if it comes across your desk, please, like, this is urgent, like, and just kind of let them know, give them a heads up, and they're like, yeah, sure, you know, I'm gonna clear it for you. And that way there's no delay or hold up in this process. When you got your customs broker on your side, you know, like, on a first name basis as your friend, like, you know them really well, they'll like do you favor and like, okay, I'm gonna clear it. So as soon as they get the paper in from the courier company, sends it to the customs broker, the broker is gonna clear it. Okay, and you gotta make sure on your part that you are providing the proper paperwork and documents. Okay, and so usually if you're importing, exporting, there's a bill of lading. Okay, that's usually that, like, the FedEx document, right, that tells you where it's going, right? So it has the shipper's information, the consignee's information, where you're sending it to. It has like what the product is, what the content, the quantity, estimated value, country of origin. This is the bill of lading, okay? So make sure you have that completed. You need to include a commercial invoice, or in case of when you're importing stuff overseas, it's a pro forma invoice. It indicates the cost of the goods or the value of the goods that are being shipped. And usually the factory is able to provide the pro forma invoice. Okay, they'll prepare it like when they're shipping goods to you. And when you're shipping goods, you'll need to provide a commercial invoice as well. And you're going to be pricing it as the value of the goods, okay? Not the retail value, but the value, the cost of the goods, not even the wholesale, it's the value of the goods, because you're going to be charged, this is when you're going to be charged duties on this price. So they determine the duties, they calculate it on the value of your shipment, okay? So if you price it at retail, you're going to be paying like crazy amounts of duty on it. So making sure you have a packing list in there. And also, if your goods are made in Canada or US, like, it used to be called an NAFTA certificate of origin. So when they had the NAFTA free trade agreement, it was between Canada, US, and Mexico. And my product was made in Canada mostly. And I provided a NAFTA certificate of origin with my shipment across to the US, so it's duty free. Okay, so you have to have this. It's now called the USMCA. It's the US Mexico Canada agreement since July 1st, 2020. They changed it, so you need to look into that and see if your goods qualify for this, like, to be duty free, basically, right? Because otherwise, if you're shipping goods like back and forth across the border, you're going to be hit on duties like every single time your products clear customs. And so going back to my story of when I was importing goods over from Asia, I actually would split my shipments up. Half of it would go into Canada, half would go into the US, because for the purpose that I didn't want to be hit with double duties. Because if I had sent everything into Canada and released my goods in Canada, they would charge me duties on it, right? So I pay duties on it. The goods would be here, but then if I ship stuff into the US, I would be charged duties again at the US rate, okay? And sometimes it depends like on the country and whatever the product is. The duty rate could be like, I was paying 18 to like 28% duties on my products. So it's a lot, right? So that's why I split my shipment. And so when the goods actually arrived into Vancouver, they would take my US portion and chuck it down to US and clear US customs so that I would only pay duty once on the US shipment. And then it would go into, go to the US warehouse. Okay, and that's when my stuff would get fulfilled and that stuff stays in the US. So consider that, okay, when it comes to logistics and stuff like that, because your costs, it just can get totally out of control, especially when it comes to like duties and shipping expenses. It's almost like sometimes you ship so many times, right? Sometimes I've shipped over borders and then I've had to have stuff returned and stuff like this. And by the time I'm like, it's not even worth it anymore. You know, like it's more expensive to pay for the shipping and it's like, okay, just leave the product there kind of thing. So yeah, keep a handle on your shipping expenses and costs, okay? And so the last thing I want to talk about is warehousing. And so where you keep your products and store your products if you don't have space, perhaps in your house. I was using my basement a lot for stuff. And also I had a warehouse in the US that helped me do some fulfillment. It was, because I live in Vancouver, the border city is Blaine, Washington. And so it's like a 1 hour drive across the border for me. So I can go down there and like go and check out my stuff, right? So I had my stuff stored in there and it can be shipped out and distributed and stuff. If I was doing US shows or US conventions, like that, my stuff would ship out of the US warehouse, okay? And so depends on your needs. And there's different types of services. One I came across is smart warehousing. I've never used them. However, I've been approached by this company so many times trying to get me to go with them. But they have distributions like all over US. They service US. And so they have warehouses like all, you know, pretty much everywhere, coast to coast, in the middle, especially. And then they handle they do all the pick and pack and, you know, shipping, logistics and all that stuff. So if you need services like that, you can look into places like this that can help you, and they'll charge you, you know, a monthly to, like, depending how much you have, like, to store the stuff, and then probably, like, you know, handling fees and stuff, like for picking and packing and shipping and all that stuff. So that's an option to look into. Okay, and so this pretty much wraps up my presentation today on operations. Before I go and take questions, I just wanted to mention like a bit about the services that I offer. I do one-on-one business consulting and mentoring, as well as I do search engine optimization for fashion companies. And so if you're interested in working with me, or if you want to determine whether or not it's the right fit, or just if you have questions, just book a call with me. So that's my Calendly booking link to book a 30-minute consultation. And I'm also starting a group coaching program in March. And I just wanted to share this with you all because I think this is a really exciting opportunity and program. I'm just gonna put this in the chat box right here. So yeah, that's the page if you want to. I just put it in the chat box. So the info, oops, sorry, I think part of it got cut off there. There, that's the right link. For the group coaching program that I'm starting in March. So who's this program for? It's a mastermind community for fashion entrepreneurs and clothing brand owners. I made the program affordable because I know all the expenses that go into running an apparel business. So this allows you to keep your costs fairly minimal, but you're still getting the support from someone with experience who's been there and can relate to what you're going through. The program is currently set for 3 months. However, at the end of the program, we can extend it month to month, depending on each individual's needs. What's special about the program is that it's a genuine collaborative experience. Unlike other programs where the leader is teaching at you, we're working together as a whole to support each other in reaching goals. Within the mastermind, there will be many masterminds and workshops, so everyone is supporting each other, and there's plenty of peer-to-peer support. In addition, you'll have access to my Chase Your Dreams Slack channel to communicate with myself and others in the program. There's customized tools, resources, content specific to the needs of people in the mastermind. So you'll be getting access to my tools and templates and like all the stuff that I talked about today, because I've actually done this and I actually created all my own systems and processes that I used in my own business. And I have like all these tracking systems and calendars and everything. So when you enter the program, like I will share these with you, these tools and resources. And the good thing is that, you know, there's going to be accountability, obviously, by being part of this group. You'll be rewarded for following through with the things you commit to in your business. And we make accountability fun. So I want to be able to give prizes to people just as, you know, rewards and stuff. And so we can celebrate our wins together. My goal is really to help you to reach your goal and to cut down the time it takes for you to reach your goals. And the master classes are hosted by me and guest mentors. And so they're designed specifically for members who are in the program. And the best part is that you will have access to my 20 years apparel industry experience, 10 years working for big brands such as Club Monaco and Reebok, as well as running my own clothing design company for 10 years. So the program is set to start Thursday, March 4th at 12 p.m. Pacific. I am only taking 10 people in this group, so I like to keep it very small. And, you know, just to summarize, what you get is that you get a private Slack community, custom master classes, weekly group coaching calls on Zoom, curated resources, mini masterminds, accountability groups, and also you'll get access to a learning portal. So you'll be able to log in and watch replays from the mastermind workshops and stuff that we do. And I'll also be bringing on guest mentors as well, different industry experts to come in and talk to the group. And so what's the investment? The cost of the program is $250 US per month for 3 months. Will be automatic recurring payments, and the first payment is due upon registration. So if this sounds like it's something that is you're interested in, then I encourage you to go and register your spot. And I will be contacting participants the end of this week. And then we'll be starting next week. So yeah, I really look forward to seeing you in the program, or, you know, if you are interested in working with me one-on-one, definitely you can book a call with me here on with this link. And thank you for sticking with me till the end of this presentation. I really appreciate it. And if anyone has any questions right now, yeah, please. Okay, somebody has a question. Curious about fulfillment and if it might be worth it as a small business. Is there size that you recommend before moving to fulfillment services? Okay, so you look into the pricing of these fulfillment centers. The reason why I didn't go with the smart warehousing, even though I knew it would be more convenient, was the cost of it was really expensive. Like it was, I think, about $1,000 a month. But I found like a cheap warehouse that I was storing my goods at, and I don't know, I just got a really good price in Blaine. And so for me, it was like really a cost thing. And yeah, but just really shop around. And I don't think, you know, it really depends on your needs. And if it saves you time, right? Like, and also, yeah, it's like the distribution, it's faster depending if they have like a large network like in the middle of the country and stuff, like your goods are going to be delivered a lot faster and stuff. Like I know I had that kind of trade-off where, okay, my stuff was like stored in the West Coast, so my shipments like to the East Coast took a little bit longer to get to and stuff like that, but I was just weighing the costs really. So yeah, I would just go look into that. Does that help, Sarah?
Yeah, so when you were storing stuff in Blaine, were you driving there yourself to then do your shipping? Is that?
Yeah, I was doing
Wow.
some myself, but they have places that would do the shipping for you. There's so many warehouses down there.
Yeah.
I just happened to find one that allowed me to do that. So not all of them will let you do that, but some of them will, but you have to go down and take a look at it. But yeah, like that way I was just saving a lot, right? I was only paying for the storage, and then like I would go down maybe, you know, once a week or whatever, and then do all my shipping and drop it off. Like, so yeah, I was like trying to cut down on my expenses.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
because it gets out of hand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Bernardo says, thank you. Always happy to hear about your experiences. I want to make sure I got it right. You had bad experience with UPS. I had a bad experience, you know, like, I don't know. One bad experience just ruins it all for you. You know, maybe people have had good experience with UPS. I just had that bad experience, and my goods just almost did not arrive. And it was completely their fault. So So yeah, I was pretty angry, and that's why I stopped. But I don't think there's a perfect courier company out there. You know, I've had issues with FedEx too. Um, so just give yourself time, like a buffer. That's really it. You know, you got to give yourself a buffer for things to go wrong and for delays and stuff to happen. Okay. So, oh, another question. With regards to shows you did, you said that you had FedEx or what have you ship your goods across the border. How did that work? Where was it stored? On the other end, fashion shows you've done in Portland have involved us putting the whole collection in our Volkswagen, getting a customs broker, driving thousands of dollars of garments down to the show ourselves. I wouldn't recommend carrying any commercial goods across the border. I was also had this experience where I did that, and it got stopped by customs. So
Yep.
you know,
You
don't have to, once you never do it again.
No.
If you're lucky and they don't pull you over, but that's not a risk you want to take, right? Because you don't want like not have your products with you and get to the show. So definitely ship your products and have it cleared properly.
Where do you ship them to?
Ship it to the hotel.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
That's good.
Call the hotel ahead of time and give them a heads up. I've always shipped to hotel. I've done over 150 trade shows and conventions. I ship it to where I'm staying. I ship it to the hotel. Sometimes they're not that happy, but you just give them a big tip or something, right? They all have like storage, like a closet or something, like for luggage storage and stuff. That's usually where they put all my boxes. And I've shipped like a dozen boxes to the hotel, and they stored it all for me. And some were even really nice, and they brought it up to my room, and they had it in my room for me when I got checked in. And you know, I gave them a nice tip. But I've never had a hotel that said no and wouldn't receive it. Or you can check with the convention center or where you're doing the show and ask the show people as well if they receive goods.
Okay.
Yeah, but you got to ship it to them and make sure you ship your goods. Don't carry commercial products with you because they could literally stop you and turn you around.
Yes. We've managed to get, like, we dealt with the customs broker, and so we did have all our paperwork and everything was all like legit. And I went to Sumas and actually like physically spoke to them beforehand about it, but it's always been a really harrowing experience. So
it is. I tell you, like I've shipped like, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of shipments. And every time I ship, I still get that like stress of like, I feel this like knot in my stomach. I'm like, okay, it's just like, yeah, it's stressful.
Well, it leaves your control is what it is, right? You control it on your end. And the second that you ship it, you kind of lose control and it has to go into somebody else's, it's somebody else's responsibility at that point. And yeah, it's a little.
Yeah. And like, I know I fill out the same documents every single time and I fill it out the same way, right? They're pre-filled out. I have those, like everything in form template, and I put it in and then it'll get held up. So I'll go in and check and I'm like, it's in customs. And why is it like, sometimes it clears the same day. Sometimes it's like, I'm like, it's been a day. It's been 2 days. Why is it in customs, right? So I have to go on the phone and then I'm calling FedEx and they're like, oh, somebody either faxed it to the wrong place or didn't fax it to my broker. So my broker didn't get it, right? Or something, or they didn't send the right documents or something. So yeah, right? It's like, and there's human error and all this stuff. So I've had situations like that and it was there for 2 days and there was nothing wrong. It's just the wrong paper or something, or somebody didn't fax it to my customs broker. And I had to go and like kind of handhold them and tell them, okay, you got to do this and this and that. And it's like, okay, right? And they're like, who is this girl? Like, I do this so much. Anyways, yeah, it's customs. It's
One question about your another shipping question. So if you had your stuff made overseas and then, you know, freight forwarder ended up sending it to the United States and then that went to like off to your customer, how did you manage quality control during that?
Yeah, that's a thing. I had trust in my factory, and I obviously had PEP samples done, sent over. I had production polls sent over, and you know, so I had checks in place. Obviously, I had to trust them to do the final QCing of stuff before stuff gets shipped, but they know there's chargebacks if I find anything in the bulk shipment and there's something wrong. Like, I'll pull it out and be like, no, I can't accept this, and there's chargebacks, right? They have so it's this trust relationship that you have with your factory. And you know, I would, if the product was crappy, I wouldn't even like use this factory. Like, there's a tolerance, right? That I say I can only accept like 2% damages or something, right? And I guess I was lucky. My factory was great. Like, sometimes I get a perfect shipment, right? There wasn't anything wrong with it. So you can only do what you can to control it, or unless you have someone on the other side to check it all. Of course, the ones that came here, I can check myself. Okay. Okay. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I think I'm going to wrap this up. Hi, Christine. I see you're in the room.
Glennis, I do have a
Yes.
question. Do you have a recommendation of the contact person, like to FedEx or DHL?
The contact for FedEx?
Yeah, or DHL.
I
don't know if
that's
you
that's always changing.
Okay.
Or it's your account manager.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, definitely for the courier, like go back to the account manager. If there's anything major, like if you're go to first level customer service, right? You call that 1-800 number. First thing I do, I'm tracking the package. If I see any delays, I call the customer service, right?
Yeah.
1-800 number. Usually I'd say 99% they can resolve it. The person on the phone can resolve it. If they can't and you have to escalate and take it to the next level, I ask for manager or go to account manager.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have something to say, Glennis. With regards to your overseas production, even with the fees, even with your duty and your import taxes and everything, you still found it to be cost effective to produce your product overseas, rather than get it produced here, hey?
By a thin margin.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was not cheap. Seriously, once you put in like that 18% duty and your shipping and your customs brokerage, almost like, yeah. Sometimes, you know, it's not that cheap. It's just almost better if you can manage to keep your production here. But yeah. Overseas.
So but along your product line, they wouldn't your customer wouldn't necessarily care that it was produced overseas, because like you said, it was costume anime inspired kind of thing. And I think it seems like it's just depends on what your customer expects at this point now. And we're finding that, You know, do we produce overseas? Do we produce in, you know, in Canada? Do we produce in Canada and the US? You know, there's a lot of questions that have to be answered. And I think it really is just an individual thing.
It really is. Depends, you know, who your clientele is, what their values are, what your brand values are, you know, what you stand for. For me, there was no way I could keep things Canadian made for my kids line. Okay.
Yeah.
I was talking my kids line because I was doing trade shows, I was doing the gift market, I was the gift and souvenir market, trying to get into and children's boutiques. Like, it's so competitive. It was all about price. They didn't care if it was made in Canada. I had my first run. My samples were all made in Canada. And I was doing the CGTA, like Canadian gift shows. And I was like, my stuff is made in Canada. Oh, how much? You know, it was always like, how much? And I was like, this is the wholesale. And it's like, oh. And then I would be talking to like reps and stuff, right? Because I was trying to work with agents and get distribution. And I had all these reps, sales reps, okay, to do sales for me. And they would look at my prices and go like, no way, right? Like, and I still had to pay them commission as well. So, and they're like, yeah, no, this is too much. And I'm like, oh, and everybody gave me that same feedback. So I was like, okay, I have to like produce these cheaper. And they didn't care where it's made.
That must have been really surprising.
It was surprising. It was surprising because I'm like, wait a minute, wouldn't you want a made in Canada hoodie product for a souvenir shop? Wouldn't somebody want it to be made in Canada? I'm like selling like moose hoodies, beaver hoodies. And it was so frustrating. I'm like, oh, they're like, no, I have to, unless I only did direct to consumer, but there was no way I could make the wholesale if I was going to produce it locally. I literally had no choice. Like, I did everything I could. And but yeah, that was just really hard. Actually, that was a big lesson that I learned, because I tried to become more like mainstream mass market, trying to do the, you know, gift market and children's wear. But in the end, it just, I don't think it didn't fit like with my brand and everything. I still had a lot of kids wear product left. At the end, like when I was winding down the business, and I went back to my roots, which was to the anime market and comic book market, and start and designing for them. And yeah, I was like, these are my people. Like, I can't get away from this. Like, you know, I just had big, by that time, you know, after 10 years, I had built up this fan base, followers and supporters, and people just would buy anything that I made. And I was like, I'm getting distracted by trying to, like, you know, go mainstream or do this kids wear market thing. And so I found out, like, you know, lesson learned, right? Like, stick to your niche, I think.
Thank you for sharing. That's amazing. It's really good to hear the stories of what works and doesn't, what necessarily doesn't work, you know,
from the front lines.
From the front lines. Yeah.
I love sharing stories. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? And I could just talk about this all day, really.